Small business war stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes. Hey, lovers of small businesses and good stories in general. Welcome to episode 92 of Small Business War Stories. And today I sat down with Laurel Barickman, and she is the founder and principal of Recspec, which is a graphic design shop in Austin, Texas. And she's awesome. She has her hands on lots of things. She also has an art gallery in her space, the Recspec Art Gallery. And we talk about what it's like to run these two businesses and how she got started. Initially, nobody would give her the time of day, and she persisted and she kicked ass, and she ended up working in the service industry and getting people, restaurants and bars to give her projects and business, and built a very successful practice of graphic design in Austin. We also talk about some big challenges she's facing with losing their lease on their building, which is something that happens to companies unexpectedly sometimes especially when you're in fast-growing areas with lots of change. So we talk about how she's tackling that challenge and how it's affecting her life and her business and how she's moving forward. This episode is brought to you by Proven. Proven is a company I started, Proven.com. It is a small business hiring tool. So if you need to hire, go ahead. We'll save you lots of time and money. Go check out Proven.com. And we also have a blog to help you with all different aspects of running your small business at blog.proven.com. And if you have any ideas for either the podcast or the blog, go ahead, shoot us an email. It's podcast@proven.com. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode number 92 of Small Business War Stories with Laurel Barickman of Recspec in Austin, Texas. And we are live here in beautiful Austin, Texas. And today I have the pleasure and honor to sit down with Laurel Barickman, and she is the founder of Recspec. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We were talking right before we started rolling. Not only do you have Recspec, which is a design firm, but you also have an art gallery here.
Yep.
Yeah, and what's the name of the art gallery?
It's Recspec Gallery.
Recspec. Okay,
yeah.
Got it. So we're double branding art galleries and design firms.
Yep.
That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your business. So what inspired you to start this? How did you first become a designer, and what inspired you to set out on your own?
So I'm a self-taught designer. I probably started teaching myself Photoshop and things like that when I was like 14 years old, and kind of learned. And then by the time I went to college, I felt like I had a good enough knowledge of that sort of stuff. So I ended up actually going to college for film. And when I was at school, I was the designer for my university. So I kind of learned a lot, like real world experience from that. And then when I finished and graduated and came back to Austin, I actually had never thought that I was going to own a business. And I applied to intern at like basically every design firm, the big ones, the small ones, all of them, and heard back from no one. Like not even a no, just like silence. And I know now more about Austin and how usually the path for that sort of stuff, internships and stuff, goes through colleges, and I was already out of college, so it makes more sense now. Okay. But that's kind of was the impetus for me to go. But
you didn't know that, so you must have taken it personally.
Yeah. It was discouraging for sure. And then, I did the classic Austin thing and worked in bars, and through that I started doing posters and design for venues and bars, and then eventually branding for venues and bars, and managing their social media, doing show posters, all that sort of stuff. And that's kind of where I got my start freelancing. Okay. And I would say that I never thought, I'm gonna own an agency or a firm, but I just kept getting busier and busier and busier. Yeah. And sort of just found myself in this situation where which so many people strive to get to, and I realize how lucky I am that this is working. This is something that I can do on my own, that I don't need to go work for someone else. Yeah. So I kind of just have done that for like the past 10 years. And I would say...
Congratulations.
Thanks. And I would say up until maybe 3 years ago, it was still just me. I do a lot of websites and that sort of thing. So I was doing all of my own project management, all my own development, everything, accounting, all those things. And it kind of got to the point where I was like, okay, well, this isn't working. This is too much for me. So a couple years ago, I hired all my employees are contract, but I have like a developer, designer, and a project manager, and kind of a few other people like peripherally that I hire.
And
off
are they
and on.
here in Austin or are they somewhere else?
They're here in Austin, yeah.
Okay.
And we work together sometimes. Usually it's remote, so it's. I don't have employees per se, but I have contract employees that do work for me that usually have their own freelance stuff going on as well.
What are some of the good and bad things about that? So I mean, we'll get into it. We'll go back to the story in a minute here, but before we move on, what are some of the good and bad things about having people who work for you on a contract basis as opposed to being your full-time employees?
Well, there's some of those things have come up recently. So the good thing about it is that it gives them flexibility and freedom to work on other projects, they don't have to be in here, 40 hours a week, that kind of thing. Same as me. I'm not necessarily here 40 hours a week. So it works with like sort of the way that I work.
Yep.
The bad things that have presented themselves are that my main developer and my main designer both got full-time jobs this year.
Oh no.
And I just can't compete with that. And I'm happy for them. Like, it's great for them. And I'm sure that the work they did with me helped them get those jobs in their portfolio. So I think, it sucks.
Yeah, it's like the curse of success.
I miss them, Leroy and Autumn. I miss you. But it's great for them, but yeah, some people need stability. Definitely, like for a certain paycheck that comes through. Also, like structure of a 9 to 5. Some people really need to, go to work and do that and have that. So I totally understand. But then then I have to find new people and that kind of thing.
How have you gone about doing that? About finding people?
I'm still kind of searching for the replacements for them. Like, I have people that do work for me, but I had 2 developers. Now I just have 1, and I just kind of have like designers doing piecemeal work here and there. But I, like building those relationships, it's hard to do that and then have them go away. So
yeah.
I do think, and then the benefits of having contract employees is you're not responsible for things like benefits as much as I would love to be able to do that, and just like the financial responsibility of having employees to that level.
Right.
I think eventually I would love that if my business got to the point where I was like, okay, I can do this. I can hire someone full-time.
So you're not committed from a cash perspective to do that. So you can balance a workload with the cash needs.
Well, and even though I am like very busy and get plenty of work, it is still, and even though I'm an agency, it is still essentially a kind of freelancing. Like, there's feast and famine. There are definitely times where the work lulls and I'm like, whoa, if I had an employee, like, I can figure it out because I have my savings and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But if I have an employee that I have to pay no matter what, that gets a little scary.
So how do you manage those cash flows? How do you manage that? I mean, you have to, I guess, learn about your business and about yourself, so that whenever you get one of those feasts, you don't go and spend it all, right?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely putting it aside, and that kind of thing. But it's hard. I still struggle with it. I still have moments where I'm like, oh, what's going on? Like, where are the clients, But I'm really lucky that it always seems to like keep flowing and keep moving.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm curious about with other design businesses.
Well, how do you manage your psychology when that happens? So you go from a lot of people who want your, and don't even forget to go back to the kind of origin story, but this is really interesting because let's say that you have, a bunch of work, great clients, those projects end.
Yeah.
It seems like nobody's out there. What happened? Am I worth anything? Like, I think this is something that goes through everybody's head.
Yeah.
When they work in something that's, a kind of a project-based, big initiative business.
I would say that I've never had it completely dry up. So there's always been something. Usually there's clients, and my project manager is really good about this, that have reached out. We've had a meeting, they're interested in working together, things happen, like they kind of like get busy or I get busy and we don't like kick off the project. So that's when we sort of reach out and are like, hey, like just seeing where you're at, like trying to drum up that business.
Sure.
Usually just from people that have already reached out to us, and we kind of, or people that just like never responded, like kind of poking and being like, hey, we're still here, like that kind of thing. And then I have just one retainer client right now. But that's a big thing for design companies, is having retainers where it's set money no matter sort of how much work you're doing. And usually for design businesses, we charge like a lower rate for retainers because it's such a good thing to have, and even if it's not that much money, that money's there. So that helps for sure. But so I wouldn't say I've ever had a moment where I've just like been completely like, what
still,
is happening?
The ups and downs, definitely take a toll on your psychology as a small business owner, right?
And I think that it does prevent me from doing things like feeling confident to hire employees or feel, like taking that step from going from contract employees to full-time employees. So, like eventually, the things that would probably change that would be getting a big retainer client that's a lot more money or something,
Is that something that you're seeking out right now? Is that something you actively,
It's something I'm always interested in. Okay. Yeah. It's, most of my clients are project-based. I think that, I worked for an app a couple years ago and they had us on retainer. But it was still a project, So I do think it would be good for myself and the company in the future to find a company that wants to have us on retainer that, it's a little more stability for it. Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, cool. Well, let's go back to where we started a little bit before. I mean, it's a little bit of an interesting side tangent there, but I think it's something a lot of small businesses are faced with, so I didn't want to let that hang. But so you went from getting to Austin, nobody give you the time of day, to working in the service industry. And through those connections in the service industry, you found clients, started doing design work. Where does the art gallery come in? Because we're sitting here in a beautiful space, and we'll talk about the space because before we started rolling, you told me something that we'll get to in a minute here. That's like the big twist. But so we're sitting here in a beautiful space, and not only do you do your design work from here, but you're also exhibiting and you do shows and selling some art here. So how did that all happen?
So it's been, like much like Recspec as a company and my career, it's been, baby steps getting to the point that we're at. A few years ago, at the beginning I was working out of coffee shops in my house. And then eventually I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. And I got like a small little studio at the Museum of Human Achievement. And then eventually I was like, okay, I need a place where I can like actually meet with clients. Like I couldn't there. As I was getting bigger jobs and stuff, I realized like from a professional standpoint, I needed to have a place to represent the company and, meet with clients. It's not just a coffee shop where it could be loud or hard to find a seat, that kind of thing. So I was looking around for spaces, and one of my clients is in this building, in the greater building is Flatbed Press. But my clients, the Austin Book Art Center, are in this building, and they let me know that the space was coming available. And it was far more than what I was expecting to get or look for, as far as size and cost and that sort of thing. And it was already a gallery. The woman who was in here before was moving to Washington, and I just decided to sort of take a leap and try it out. I've always been involved in the arts and an artist myself, and I've always actually been interested in having a gallery. I just think curation is something I'm really, really interested in, and I love showcasing other people's work. I know so many talented artists. So I just kind of took the leap to get this space, and I'm really, really glad I did. And I knew at the time that it would be work, but it has essentially kind of become an entire other job. So, but that's just sort of how it happened. And because the space was already set up to be a gallery, and I knew that I would need to have another stream of income in order to justify having the space, I was like, well.
How often do you do events here?
Every month.
Every month.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a little crazy.
Okay. Yeah, because this is all one artist on the walls here. Right?
Currently, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I do.
It looks like early 1980s Miami colors.
Yeah, this one especially.
Yeah, like what I'm facing right now with some very kind of Cubist slash expressionist sort of influences.
Yeah, her name's Vino. She's great. Yeah, mostly local artists. I do pull in people from other places. As far as like Australia, I've had people send me work. New York, New Orleans, California, that sort of thing. But I think it was just our year anniversary, and I've done 12 shows in a year, which is kind of insane.
Wow.
Normally it's more
so
like
the
6
gallery
weeks.
is relatively recent then.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
Well, congrats.
thanks. Yeah, I've been in the space a little bit longer than that, but it took me a while to get to where I had the time to start the gallery.
And this would be a good time to introduce a twist.
Yeah.
And the great twist is that, so we're in this beautiful kind of industrial building that is divided into how many spaces?
I'm not entirely sure, but there's like
Maybe
a
dozen,
huge,
dozen or so
print
people in
shop.
here.
There's like 3 galleries.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of studios.
Yeah, it's probably about 20,000 square feet or so.
Yeah.
Roughly, and it's divided into about 12 different places. And everybody here just lost their lease.
Yep.
All right, so let's talk about that. That is definitely a challenge.
That's a
Here at Small Business War Stories, we like to talk about triumphs and struggles and like the humanity of running a small business.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. What's going on?
So it's an unfortunate recurring story in Austin. Arts communities are sort of losing their spaces left and right. Our particular situation is this building is owned by just a businessman in Dallas, and he's seen all of the development going on in Austin and all of the condos being built, and he wants in on that. So he's going to build his own condo where this building is.
Okay.
And right across the street from more condos, who I'm sure probably sold it to their residents, being like, we're right across the street from this awesome arts community.
Yeah.
And Flatbed Press, the building here, has been here, I think next year would be their 20-year anniversary. So
Okay.
it's a very, very established, probably one of the first
What
arts.
do they do?
They're like, they do, the main hallways is a gallery, but their main thing is they do fine art printing for artists and just beautiful, beautiful edition prints and that sort of thing. So it's kind of dual use for them as well. And very well respected. They were probably one of the very first arts places to open up in East Austin.
I should talk to them. I've been shooting large format photography.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And there's some stuff that I want to print.
Yeah,
large size. So.
They're great. Yeah, they're very, very. I mean, just wonderful people, and also like the skill of their craft is impeccable.
Okay.
So
everybody here, including them, who's been here for 20 years, is losing their lease.
Yep, in February.
Okay, and we are currently recording this in September, late September. So you have a few months, 4 or 5 months to figure this out.
Yeah.
So what's next? I mean, first of all, before we go into what's next, what happened? What was your reaction when did you hear about this, and what happened? What was your reaction when you heard?
I guess I heard about this in January when it was time for me to renew my lease.
Okay.
And not surprised, not surprised, disappointed, but not surprised.
Yeah, this happened recently to me personally with my house. So I had a really cool place that very well located, and the owner decided to sell it so they could redevelop it into something else, more units and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just happening everywhere. It's really a shame, and I think a lot about gentrification, especially as I've been kind of looking to see what other spaces are out there. And, like one of the unfortunate things is artists can only afford so much, so they go to these sort of, less expensive neighborhoods, and then that adds value to it, and it's just this perpetual cycle, and it's like, what are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to not get a space at all because you can only afford one in a lower income area?
Right.
Or so it's kind of something that I'm constantly
What are solutions
battling.
to that? Are there like artist collectives that you could put together to buy things? I mean, how does that?
Yeah, that's been something that people have been talking about and trying to do. I think definitely for me, I'm interested in the prospect of a collective sort of situation going forward. But as far as like who can buy things, in Austin, it's hard. It's very, very expensive. I've been looking at a lot of properties, and again, it's just like we just need investors. All these people that are putting all this money into tech companies and into condos and that sort of thing, it's amazing how little it would take to help an arts community so much. But there's no return for those people. And even, I don't know if you've heard at all about how, so the cultural funding in Austin comes from hotel tax, and like for grants and that sort of thing. I didn't know. And that's where they pull most of the money for it. And it's been slashed by like $1 million this year. And you know for a fact that there's plenty of hotels and plenty of hotels still being built and that sort of thing.
Why would that be?
I mean, city council distributes the funds, they decide. And I know it's actively being fought right now. Like people are in meetings like currently right now about fiscal year 2019.
Right.
But so even those things, even the support that we do have, which it makes sense, it coming from the tourism industry to benefit the arts community, even that is sort of not there, or like, diminishing somewhat. So it's frustrating.
So you heard about this 8-9 months ago, and your reaction was, this sucks, but it's not something that I was surprised by.
Yeah, and I think that because I am relatively new, it definitely sucks when, just sort of kind of getting momentum, for sure. Like, our shows were really well attended, and I feel like I've started to build a name as a gallery. And, I've had such a great response of people being like, I love what you show. It's different than what anyone's showing. And it sucks to sort of have the rug pulled out from under you. I think it was tempered somewhat by my more feeling for Flatbed and for these people that are so established, like part of me is like, well, I'm the new guy. Like,
okay. So
like,
what's next? What do you?
I don't know. And that's like a question everyone wants to know, because now everyone knows about Flatbed closing, or not closing, losing their lease. Right. So everyone's like, what are you going to do? It's hard. The struggle is real, as they say. It is hard. Like, our shows are really well attended, and I am lucky enough to sell work, but the cost of spaces is absurd. Everything that I've looked at compared to what I'm paying now is at least 3 or 4 times as much. And I'm
3 or 4 times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we were talking earlier about the importance of cash in the business.
Yeah.
Because of the stability of work. And all that.
And really, essentially, right now, and I'm actually fine with this, and I knew this going into it. My design business completely floats the gallery. The gallery sales do help somewhat, but it's, there you have to consider the split with the artists and that sort of thing. So even if I sell $1,000 piece, I do a 60-40 split, which is better than most galleries. So
60,
the artist gets 60%, and I get 40%.
40%.
Most galleries do 50-50. So, like even if you sell $1,000 piece, it's only $400, so it's like, it's not enough money for the gallery to pay for itself, essentially, with, even with what I'm paying in rent right now. So my design business floats it, and my design business kind of suffers financially as a result. I just like can't get caught up on certain things. Like I had this really bad tax tax reality a couple of years ago, and like, things like that, where I'm like still trying to catch up from some stuff, and because of the gallery, I'm not able to like sort of distribute the funds in the way that would probably be best. So I don't know. I think that for me, it's not tenable at all to pay 3 or 4 times as much as I do now. Right. Possibly something similar would work, but I'm just not seeing it. One of the big things for me as well is that because I have this whole other business, my design company, which is my bread and butter and what I really need to focus on, I feel like I don't have the time to do both, really. And I've been making it work, but it has been a lot of work. So I think that I definitely do want to continue to curate. I would love to have another gallery space, but I think the format needs to change. I'm definitely interested in finding some people to collaborate with, not only in say, a collective type setting, not only to split the financial responsibility, which makes it more possible to get a space that maybe is quite a bit more, but also the work of putting together shows.
I mean, if you had 4 people sharing it, if you do 1 show a week instead of 1 show a month, and you had 4 people rotating through, right? Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, or just, a lot of people like to curate or are interested in curating, so getting people or artists, to where they can show and that kind of thing as well. So I don't know. I think that I might take a break.
From the gallery stuff.
Unless like an angel investor gets in contact, or like something like that, but for right now it's just not financially responsible to like get a space that's so much more expensive.
Well, sometimes you have to make those choices, and then those things tend to come around. You just put it out there, and You
Yeah.
have all these contacts in the community. 'Cause
Exactly.
You've been working in Austin, you said 10 years?
Yeah. I've been here a long time. So,
yeah. And we got introduced by Allison from Coco Coquette, who's also been on the show.
Yeah.
And, you definitely have a community of people who are, like-minded.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. It's great, and I've been really lucky as far as my design business goes. I've never had to advertise. I've never had to solicit work.
Yeah.
Allison's a great example of someone that I do design work for, and she recently referred a new client to me.
Okay.
It's very community based.
So you do zero advertising?
Zero advertising.
You do social media?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I would say for my design business if that brings in much.
That's for the art gallery mostly.
Yeah. The gallery, I'll do a little bit of advertising.
It's Recspec, RECSPEC?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where did that name come from?
It's just like a made up name for recreational speculation. It's just made up.
All right.
Back when I came up with the name, my husband and I were like putting on events and DJing, and kind of it was more just like entertainment and, like some design and that sort of thing. It wasn't like this is going to be my design company. And I would say probably a few years ago, I was like, should I change the name? I was like, no, it's unique,
sure thing.
Yeah,
do it.
Yeah.
I want to. So you talk about working for clients, your website, you talk about working for clients that are looking for solutions outside of the norm. Mm-hmm. What does that mean to you?
I think that the work that we do is really creative, different. I think the clients that come to me want something that not only works really well, say for a website or that sort of thing, but also looks really good and has like an aesthetic and has, some interests and isn't just, I do have some clients that just need like corporate design and like, that's great. Happy to do that work.
Sure.
But most of the people that come to me and, they say to put out there what you want to get back, are people that are looking for creative solutions that are maybe a little bit weird or, just like a little bit different.
What's an example? What are some of them?
That's a good example. Like even I would say, like Sherry from Charm School Vintage, like she wanted something that was like a little witchy and with moons and stars and, like a little astrological and like just something that's not just text, that has some spirit of like who she is. And I really like to connect with like I do all of my client intake and meetings and that sort of stuff, and I really like to connect with people and sort of learn who they are and give it, and I think it's just my own sort of like style and twist on things as well. People that come to me with like there's this great place that's opening up called the Sacred Rest Stop. Totally interesting idea. She does like meditation and yoga retreats and like classes and that sort of thing. She has one called social justice, or what is it? Social activist meditation. And it's about like being calm. And so they come to me with these like interesting businesses as well. Yeah. And I think that's where it sort of meshes, and like for hers, we have this like blinking eye with like flowers growing, like it's different. It's not to disparage on anyone else in the Austin design community, but I do feel like, especially in Austin, things are starting to look very similar. There's this like style and design that's like prevalent.
What is that style?
I would say it's kind of like, little gritty vintage, like little illustrations that, like look like they could have come out of like an old manuscript or something. I don't know. I just see it everywhere. Similar typefaces, similar everything. And even though it looks nice and it's interesting, it's starting to become very repetitive. And I find myself even like avoiding going down, like kind of Western-y, kind of, I don't know. It's a very defined style, and I think most designers in Austin would know what I'm talking about, without saying anyone specifically. Sure. But I definitely think that we're a little weirder, which I'm happy to be. I'm happy to be weird, and I'm happy to be interesting and do stuff that's sort of different. Like, do you want something dark and spooky, or do you want something really modern and clean? Like I love just sort of playing with these different worlds and stuff, and not having, I think all of our work looks very different. And, some people might be like, well, you don't have such a defined style, but I think it does come through when you look at it as a whole. And I'm proud of the work that we do.
Very cool. Yeah. Can you think of a project that you're particularly fond of that you thought like, this is really interesting and out there? And
I get to work on so many different cool things. I did the design and like poster design and credits and a website and everything for a film that I don't know if it premiered at Sundance a couple years ago, but it won an award at Sundance, which was great. And it's a documentary called Motherland, and it's about the Philippines and about how the birth rate there is insane. And there's like, it's the only country, like somewhat developed country, that like doesn't have divorce. It just doesn't have divorce. It doesn't exist.
Good
so
Catholic Church probably.
Yeah.
I've been there actually. Manila is a very, very intense place. It took, I think it was like 2 miles to go from one area of the airport to the other area, and it took like an hour and 45 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a really interesting place, and like because there's no divorce, most people don't even get married, and they just like they don't believe in birth control either. Like they're trying to fix that, but in the course of this film, while they were filming, the 100 millionth Filipino baby was born, which is insane, like just so crazy. But it was a really interesting project because like how to sort of incorporate sort of this Catholic influence, which we did really subtly, like making the T in Motherland across, but not like very obviously, but also like kind of give you the feeling of this. Like the film is really, really beautiful and really intense, but there's like a lot of crying from babies and that sort of thing. So we ended up doing this like giant baby on this like giant poster, kind of crying, and it just sort of grabs you. And one of my favorite things that we made is we put this crying baby on condoms, and it was one of their like promotional items. And I love the crying baby condoms so much.
Yeah.
I think it's such a like perfect encapsulation of like so many things.
Yeah.
So that was really fun
That
and
is
interesting.
An interesting project.
Yeah. And just thinking about like at Sundance, like that they were passing out these.
They were passing out condoms with crying babies on them.
Yeah.
And you made the design of all that. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was a fun one.
So we just talked about a time, obviously, when you're facing a difficulty with your lease. Can you think of another time in the last 10 years where something went really wrong, and what did you do about it?
Yeah. So let this be a warning to my fellow business owners. So I mentioned that I've had a retainer client that was like an app, and it was really good money. I was able to pay my contractors a lot. It was great, and I did a lot of things with the money, like getting the space, so putting a deposit down, like paying off a credit card, things like that.
Yep.
And for the first time in my business's history, I actually put aside for taxes throughout the year, and I was feeling really proud of myself. It's like, I'm doing it. Unfortunately, what I did not know is that I had made enough money that it bumped me into a new tax bracket.
Ooh.
And it also like and there were like changes in tax laws, so some things changed there as well. And even though
so that means you owed more tax than you thought.
Yeah, and I'd just like to be honest, I don't care. I had paid like $15,000 and I owed $12,000 more, and it was a huge shock. Yeah,
and
something I'm still paying off, which I kind of mentioned, because of the gallery, I kind of can't put as much money aside as I need to.
Yeah.
And that was just so shocking to me, especially because I had felt like I was really on top of it. I had felt good about because taxes are always a struggle for freelancing. And, you just I have a tax person that I go to around tax season, but I don't have an accountant. So I was doing my own accounting and didn't really catch that this was going to happen. And some frustrating things that I learned were if I had been, at the time I was an LLC, and if I had been an S Corp instead of an LLC, I would have basically saved that amount of money. So learning lessons like that where you're like, wow, if I had known that, which I'm now an S Corp, I wouldn't owe this much money.
We had an episode actually, which was an exception. So most episodes, like a great majority, 95% or 98% of the episodes are done in person with small business folks. We had an episode, however, that was done remotely, and we do what's called flash episodes with people who are kind of experts in some kind of area of small business, and one of them was the questions that you should have asked your business lawyer.
Yeah.
And that was one of them.
Yeah.
That was one of them, is what
what business structure you should have in order to optimize your own, cash and tax preferences.
Yeah. And I think for me, of course, where I started, LLC was the right place to be. But then once you start making a certain amount of money, it makes way more sense to be an S Corp. Very frustrated that my tax people the year prior were like, we should maybe talk about you being an S Corp. I'm like, cool, let's talk about it. And like, didn't talk about it, like didn't hear from them. I forgot about it and everything. And then the next year they were like, well, if you were an S Corp, you would have saved $12,000.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
so that was, and I would say like, especially going into a year where I was like, I'm not going to owe anything.
Yeah, but ultimately that's on you, right? That's on us. I mean, I've had issues like that before where something happened.
Yeah.
And as small business people, we have to take responsibility for that.
Oh yeah, no, it's totally on me. I wish that I had like really figured it out, like followed up and seen what an S Corp was. Like I just didn't really understand.
Because I think that's important, right? So if when that's happened to me with different things where, I can think of a couple of instances like that where I made a mistake like that. Taking that ownership of it allows you to then not do it again and really like drive the process forward
and take care of it
and make sure that in the future when I'm dealing with this right now with one of my attorneys who there's something really important that needs to happen and it's on me to follow up to make sure that happens.
Totally. Don't do what I did.
Well, I mean we all I don't think there's certainly a single person out there, but a single business out there that hasn't made a lot of these mistakes and then learn through them, right?
Well, and for me especially, having not, I've never worked at an agency. I didn't go to college for design, so I don't know how much of the business they teach in those sort of situations, but you kind of see how other people are working when you work at a place. But also, like, I don't have any business degree or anything like that, so for me, there are no maps for these territories. Like, I'm just, like, wading through it, trying to figure it out, like asking the internet and that sort of thing. And I am at the point now where I'm actually going to meet with people to manage sort of my finances and stuff, because that's when you realize one of the biggest things for my business has been like, what are my weaknesses? One of them was development. I could develop websites fine. I did it for years, but it wasn't what I was best at and it wasn't what I liked. So outsourcing that stuff, it's huge, and it's a scary step. You're like, well, I'm going to have to pay someone for something I used to do. But just the mental relief of that, so that's something that I feel really good about, that I'm taking the steps towards, like.
Yeah. And that's something you've learned by doing.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it? One of my professors said that good judgment comes from experience and experience comes from bad judgment.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and that's why, like I said, I'm very open and honest about this stuff, because if I can possibly help someone not make the mistakes I have over the years, like whenever I meet with designers, I've just like sat down with designers who want to know about the business and know how I got to the place that I am. And I'm one of those people that I'm not a gatekeeper at all. I am happy to sort of share any of that information because I wish someone had with me, so anything.
Well, you are right now.
Yeah.
So a lot of the small business war stories audience gets to learn from your experience.
Yeah. And it's, and I would say one of the biggest struggles with my business, I would say almost every year around tax time, I consider going to work for someone because it is so difficult. And that is like the biggest thing that I am trying to combat right now, is to make that not.
Have you thought, the way that I solve that for myself is working with a bookkeeper, that like everything gets, I guess my company's a C Corp, which is a little bit of a different thing, but
I think that's what I'm meeting with those people next week about, is just sort of like handing that off. You know? I just like...
Yeah, because it frees up a lot of cycles in your mind to focus on the things that actually grow your business, right?
Yeah, definitely. And the fact that I think one of the reasons why it's taken me so long and why I've struggled with it is I would meet with like accountants and stuff like that who I kind of knew, like people I knew peripherally or something, acquaintances, and they'd be like, you can do this. You can manage your QuickBooks. And I'm like, I know that I can. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I want to pay you to do that, so it's a challenge.
That's a great insight, actually. So, Allison from Coco Coquette and I, we talked about this when she shared her story about like dealing with her tax nightmare, and like recognizing that there's aspects of the business that you could do, but you may not be as good at, and like to take away focus from what you're really good at.
Yeah.
And that it's okay to say like, okay, somebody else handling this.
Yeah. No, and I think that for me is the next step, is being like, okay, I know that the business does well. Like, it shouldn't be
Yeah.
this much of a struggle. Obviously, some things, like, there's a disconnect somewhere.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the overhead, you know, it's definitely causing some issues for me. But it's also just, like, understanding the flow. And because it's not, that's challenging as well, because it's not a set amount every month. It's really hard to budget. It's really hard to do all that sort of stuff. But I think that I just need to relinquish some control, which is scary.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, like my budget for my business, I work with a bookkeeper and we review that, you know, consistently every month, and that's I think do that. It's important.
Yeah.
Good. Awesome. What would you say is your number one lesson for small? Like, let's say there are a lot of folks that listen to the show who are either running a small business or they're considering running a small business, and they're, you know, currently now in their job. You've been doing this successfully for 10 years, which, congratulations, that's a huge deal. That a lot of people wish that they were in your position with all the challenges that you've had. You have a beautiful space here, you have great clients, you do great work. So that's awesome. What would you say is your number one lesson or thing that you've learned that you could share with people? Kind
of coming back to a lesson that I'm obviously still learning about what we just talked about is getting help. Not feeling like you have to do everything on your own. I remember when I first started hiring people, contract employees, I was like, that's scary, like, especially for designers. I'm like, I'm a designer. Like, why, you know, like, why would I pay someone to do this?
Yeah.
But I was just getting too busy. And you may feel it may be scary to commit that money to someone else, but it increases your capacity so much more. Yeah. And I found that, like, the more I sort of not outsourced, but like got help from people, the more came in, you know, like your business will grow to accommodate that. Yeah. So I think it's always, even if it's scary, even if it's going to be tight, you know, you feel like you're going to reach some point where you're just going to have enough money that you don't have to worry about it, you know, where you can pay other people or hire someone. I think it is finding your strengths and weaknesses. And I think we all have stuff in our business that we're like, this isn't what I want to do. Yeah. This isn't like what I'm good at. And, you know, finding people that are good at that want to do it.
And self-awareness is the name of the game with that.
Yeah. I, not even intentionally, but just like through the way that my business came to be, I did everything for so long and I was just killing myself over it, you know, just like working myself to death. And it just took sort of letting go a little bit. And I think that that's one of the best things that anyone can do, because no man is an island. There are some businesses that are small enough where you really don't need other people. But I think for a lot of people, that's a big step and it's a good one to take.
Okay, awesome. So where can people find you? Your social media handles, you said, is Recspec?
For my design business, and then recspec.gallery.
Gallery for the gallery. And then your website is?
Recspec.co.
Somebody had taken recspec.com.
Yeah, they're like a glasses company, like for sporting, like goggles. Oh, no. Recreational spectacles. Yeah, I know. But yeah, recspec.co. That's RECSPEC. And then the gallery is recspec.gallery.
And you work with clients beyond Austin, right? You can from anywhere.
All over. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on your success.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate you sharing all your stories.
Yeah, it was nice chatting.
Take care.
All right.
Thank you for listening to Small Business War Stories. If you enjoy the show, share it with a friend, or you can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or on our blog at blog.proven.com. If you have an idea for us, we'd love to hear it. Please email us at podcast@proven.com. See you next time. Small Business War Stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes.